There's a guy that I know for many years. He's a very interesting guy, smart guy, and he's a wealthy guy. And he's his way, he can do whatever he wants with his life, financially at least. And he tells me, a while back, he says to me, I finally mastered the art of being in a relationship with a beautiful woman with no commitment. And he was like proud of it. I said, does she know about that too? He says, not yet. He figured out how to be in a relationship with no commitments. I said, so tell me, what does a relationship with no commitment mean exactly? Isn't that like a contradiction of terms? Then there's no relationship. Then it's like going to a grocery store, you buy what you want, you're not committed to the grocery store, and you move on. And I said, would you tolerate if she also says a relationship with no commitment? Of course he wouldn't. In other words, he's trying to manipulate the situation that he gives what he wants to give and doesn't and takes what he wants to take, but it's based on his terms. This is the classic unhealthy approach to relationships, where instead of being vulnerable, he doesn't want to be vulnerable. Who wants to be vulnerable? Doesn't sound very pleasant, but the real experience of life is meant exactly that you are vulnerable, but you're with someone you trust, and therefore vulnerability is something to celebrate, not to be afraid of. Now, I don't want to depress anyone, but the fact of the matter is, when we talk about sexuality in our world today, at least in the Western world, sexuality is divorced of intimacy. People's sexual pleasure is not necessarily what I would call intimacy. Because you could have sexual pleasure and not be intimate. When I say, or I would maybe rephrase it, people's definition of intimacy is based on pleasure as opposed to true relationship. Look, you see people say, I fell in love, I'm madly in love, and 2 years later they're in a divorce court and both want to kill each other. So what happened to the love? If they were so madly in love, is it so mercurial that it can just change in a year or two? Or maybe their definition of falling in love was a false definition. That's what I would say. Love is not what people think it is. Everyone thinks, fall in love. We're in love. We're making love. These are words that have become overused and don't really appreciate the depth of what a true relationship is. When you study the mystical teachings, especially as explained in Hasidic thought, you find a whole complex system of how souls commune and how souls become intimate. And there's 5 dimensions. There's a nefesh dimension, and a ruach dimension, and a neshama dimension, and a chaya dimension, and a yechida dimension. That's just the surface level. 5 dimensions of a relationship, which include biological and physical and sexual in the physical sense of the word, but it also includes emotional, and includes intellectual, and includes transcendent, and includes what's called the unifying element.